And when we are healthy in our obsession, we become passionate with purpose. And that passion helps us achieve our goals and dreams and aspirations in a much more direct, focused method.
I am Gloria Grace Rand, founder of the Love Method and author of the #1 Amazon bestseller, Live, Love, Engage: How to Stop Doubting Yourself and Start Being Yourself. In this podcast, we share practical advice from a spiritual perspective on how to live fully, love deeply, and engage authentically, so you can create a life and business with more impact, influence, and income. Welcome to Live, Love, Engage. Namaste. What if I told you that the very challenges that seem to block your path are actually your stepping stones to success? Well, today's guest is going to reveal his proven formula that embraces productive obsession and delayed gratification for business triumph. But first, I do want to welcome all of you to Live, Love, Engage, especially if this is your first time and you are new. I am Gloria Grace, and I help female entrepreneurs attract their ideal clients by going beyond traditional search engine optimization to embrace my definition of SEO, which is to spiritually engage others. And joining us in just a moment is Dr. Emilio Justo. He is a renowned ophthalmologist, a cosmetic surgeon, best-selling author, and two-time TEDx speaker. And his talks on today's subject have actually amassed millions of views. So without further ado, I'm going to bring him right up here, if I can get my mouse to work, and we're going to welcome Dr. Emilio to Live, Love, Engage.
Well, greetings to you, Grace. It's such a delight to be with you, and it's such an honor, and I love all the work that you're doing, and it's really a privilege to be here. So thank you for the invitation.
Oh, well, it's my pleasure, believe me. And because when I first heard what you were all about, and I thought, this is really intriguing. I really want to know more. So let's just dive right into it. I mentioned at the top, you've got this formula for success that I know it has a particular name. So I wonder if you could share with us what that is and how it works.
Well, in simplistic terms, my so-called formula, I don't really call it a formula. I call it my Cuban triad, being a Cuban refugee to the United States. And that triad consists of, number 1, self-discipline, number 2, resilience and perseverance, and number 3, delayed gratification. And then once you mix all those 3 together, then a little healthy dose of healthy obsession can top it off, just like a little topping off your ice cream with a cherry.
Well, I love that. And as I mentioned, your TED Talk does deal with this. I watched it where you talked about productive obsession. And so maybe you could start there, because it does seem a little counterintuitive. When you think of obsession, you think of somebody stalking someone, or, they're obsessed with another person, or they're just, addicted almost. So how can we make this more of a tool, I guess, for us instead?
Well, sure, Grace. Well, when I refer to obsession, I'm changing the paradigm. I'm not referring to a negative connotation that we commonly think of when we think of obsession as a psychiatric disease or an obsessive compulsive disorder. To the contrary, I think of obsession as a very positive thing. And when we are healthy in our obsession, we become passionate with purpose. And that passion helps us achieve our goals and dreams and aspirations in a much more direct, focused method. And so it's like this, think of it like a focused energy that lights a spiritual fire inside of us to pursue our goals with love and commitment and with laser-like focus.
Well, I can see that. I mean, it does make sense, because I know if I'm really have a project that I'm working on, and I do become laser focused on it, and I want to keep going on it until I get it done. So I can see that is, I guess that probably would be the mark, I think, of a successful entrepreneur. You do have to have some of that, real productive obsession with something. So how do you know, though, if you are sort of practicing this healthy way of being obsessive versus maybe destructive perfectionism, let's say?
Well, I think one of the ways is that we have to be able to use that obsession to not so much fixate on the achievement, but rather channel that passion, that purpose into something meaningful and impactful. And more importantly, we have to be able to find the joy in the journey, not simply the destination. And that's where I think many of us unfortunately become fixated on the destination, on that ultimate goal, and instead not focusing on the journey and celebrating the small achievements and the milestones along the way, which is very, very important, because celebrating those achievements and those milestones, we can then use that as fuel to then even further reinforce our passion and our obsession to continue climbing higher and higher. And after all, I think that really our entire life is a complete journey. I don't think we really, really rarely ever reach that destination. We think we do, and then when we get close to it, we have a new destination that we're trying to achieve.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I've learned that just in my own spiritual development, for one thing, is that, just when you think you've got, like you said, that you've reached that one thing, it's like, okay, I've got it handled now. And then something else comes up and it's like, okay, now I have to learn how to deal with this. So it's like we're never fixed. And I think that's true even as a business owners as well, because there's always something new that you want to be able to continue to improve and innovate and continue to create something that will keep that momentum going. So yeah, that makes so much sense. I wonder how can you actually, though, maintain this self-discipline? And because that's really, I think, what it is, partly is, or well, actually, let's go back a little bit, because you do say that self-discipline is part of this as well. So talk
Yes.
a little bit about that and what's the importance of that?
Well, severalfold. Number one, self-discipline, in my view, is not just about controlling impulses. It's about aligning our actions with a higher purpose. And so by grounding ourselves in what really truly matters, self-discipline becomes what I consider to be an act of devotion to our vision, and not to be viewed as something restrictive. But in simple terms, Grace, self-discipline and delayed gratification is really just resisting the urge and the temptation for that immediate reward in favor of a later, oftentimes greater reward.
Well, yes, and that's not always easy. It sounds good, but in this day and age of, we do want we're sort of been trained, I think, to want this instant gratification all
Right.
the time. So how do you go about making that shift to be able to develop that self-discipline?
By simple steps, we have to just practice. And I think if you just take each day and, for example, tell yourself no to something that you want immediately that day. And the simple example would be, for example, if you go to the mall and you want to buy something, okay, question to yourself, well, do you really need it? And then ponder it, stop and think about it. Maybe give it a few days, give it a week. Quite often, when we go back to that immediate pleasure that we wanted and we think about it, a week later, quite often the urgency that we felt originally is no longer there. So just being able to say no to ourselves, I think, is important. Now, you're correct. It's easier said than done. But as the old expression goes, practice makes perfect. And so we just have to get out there and just start small with little steps, so that you start subconsciously training your mind to pause. Patience is such an incredible virtue. And I think perhaps maybe my third TEDx talk, which I haven't written yet, but 2025, I want to do another one. Maybe that might be a good topic, because, patience, I feel, is not talked about enough. And it's really, I think, the key to most everything in life. We have to be patient.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's just become it's become so, I don't know if that it's, well, not necessarily difficult. I think maybe frankly we're just become lazy, and we're so quick to, now even uh we find ways to be able to keep ourselves from being bored. If we're waiting in line, we've got our phones out and we're scrolling through and whatever, instead of just, standing in line and just waiting.
Yeah,
And it's,
enjoy the moment. I mean, yeah, you're standing in line. I mean, I look around. I'm at the grocery store. I'm at Safeway. I'm standing in line all the time, and
right.
I look around. I see who's around me. Quite often, I'll find somebody who seems interesting. Maybe spark a conversation.
Mhm.
Have a discussion with someone. I mean, anything to trigger your mind and nourish your mind and your soul. And when you're driving, for example, this is a story I talk about that where I wish I could go back. I don't have many regrets in life, but this is a small one, and that is, I became an advocate of audiobooks just maybe in the last 5, 6 years, and I have almost a 1 hour commute just one way back and forth to my office every day, and all this time I was wasting just listening to music, which is relaxing certainly. But then once I discovered audiobooks, boy, what an incredible way to nourish your mind, to educate yourself, right? And self-education is key. It's another aspect of life that, my wife and I are trying to teach our 3 young children who are 13, 17, and 20. And as you can imagine, teenagers, it's difficult for them to understand as an adult the wisdom that we have to share. They think that they know it all. But yeah, I think you just pause, look around you, be grateful. Have this feeling of gratitude, Grace. I mean, again,
Mhm.
so underestimated, not talked about enough, in my opinion. But man, we have so much in our life to be grateful for. And whether you're a religious person or not, whether you're just spiritual, doesn't matter. I mean, we must have an attitude of gratitude for everything that the world has around us and the opportunities that we have.
Oh,
And
absolutely.
lastly, Grace, if I can just, I'm sorry to
Yeah.
dominate the
No,
conversation
no,
here,
no, no,
but
no.
but
Yes,
but
go for
um,
it.
but I think another aspect of life that I like to talk about, which is not always talked about, in my opinion, enough, is being humble. Being humble, humility. It's so easy when we do achieve, right? Any of us, regardless of our profession, our career, our path in life, we get to a point where we achieve and we think, wow, we're so hot, we're so great. We're God's gift to humanity. No, every single one of us is God's gift to humanity, and we have to understand that it doesn't matter if you're a surgeon like me, or if you're a steel worker like my father was back at U.S. Steel in Gary, Indiana. We're all part of God's creatures here on earth, and we all are equal. And I
Mhm.
think having that humility is extraordinarily powerful.
Oh, yeah, I agree 100%. And there's also, though, the other side of it too, because as entrepreneurs, that sometimes we can be, we sort of err on the other side of it, or I would say at least heart-centered entrepreneurs, people who are like really spiritually inclined, where we we're sort of too humble and we're not putting ourselves out there. We're not really letting people know how we can support them, what we have to offer. And so you've got to strive for a good balance here of being able to, don't go crazy and over uh, bragging about yourself, let's say, but being able to still be out there and say, yeah, this is what I do, and be humble and say, okay, maybe I don't know everything, so I'll refer you to somebody else who does.
Right,
You know?
absolutely, absolutely. But I do find in my mind a little bit of a distinction, because
Mm.
for those people who don't put themselves out there like you're speaking of, that, in my opinion, is because they don't have that obsession, right? If you have that obsession and that passion, you will put yourself out there, and you're not afraid to embrace failures, right? Oh my gosh, Grace, I've had so many failures in my life and continue to have failures. I could do an entire podcast on just failures. So I think the fact that one doesn't put themselves out there is more of a lack of obsession, not because of humility. I mean, humility to me is a standalone subject. It just means that you know that you're one of billions on this planet, that we were all created under God, and we all have things to contribute in this world, and that neither of us is better than the other person. We may make more money than the other person, but that doesn't make us better.
Right.
And so humility and obsession, I think, are two separate topics in my view.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we're going to be right back in a minute, because I do want to ask you actually where you got and how you were inspired to come up with this whole, theory about this. So, but I'm going to pause for a second, and I want to let folks know about something that I am productively obsessed about right now, and that is my brand new Align to Shine Academy. And this is a 30-day program that is starting on November 26th, 2024, and it is designed for people, entrepreneurs out there who are perhaps struggling with some self-doubt, and maybe you're not valuing yourself enough, you're not putting yourself out there, and you're not charging enough for your services and things like that. And so what I have put together is it's a 4 weeks of virtual training on what I call the love method, which is I write about in my book, Live, Love, Engage. And it's going to include some energy healing, daily guidance, and community support, and plus some bonuses as well. So if you are interested in joining, I've got some entrepreneurs are already ready to go, and I would invite you to be able to join us. You can go to aligntoshineacademy.net and get all the details. I will have that in the show notes as well, but I hope that you will consider joining us. The investment's only $197, and I will tell you that is the lowest price it's ever going to be, because this is the first time I've launched that. So I'm really looking for founding members who are ready to play full out and give me some good feedback after it as well. So again, go to aligntoshineacademy.net, and you'll get all the details, and I hope you'll join us. And this way you can start 2025 with your best foot forward. So yeah, I would love to have you share with our audience now a little bit about what inspired you to come up with all of these concepts of productive obsession and delayed gratification.
Well, great question, Grace. And truly, I must admit that I didn't come up with the concept of delayed gratification. It was really me reflecting on my life. As I get a little bit older, having just turned, I think, 35, maybe it was 40 last week. Just a joke, folks. That I look at my life, and my wife and I have 3 relatively young kids. And, my life has been filled with delayed gratification without me choosing it. Coming to the United States as a refugee, as an immigrant, with my parents not having anything, delayed gratification was part of my journey. And then the obsession part came in really, I think, perhaps in high school, because as a freshman in high school, I had a serious medical crisis midway through my freshman year of high school, and I was hospitalized for 2.5 months. I had 3 surgeries on my face, which left me scarred. And nonetheless, I was resilient. I persevered. I developed just innately. It's not that anyone pushed me. My parents didn't push me, but I developed this obsessive drive to achieve my goals. And lo and behold, I was blessed to be valedictorian of my graduating high school class, which was then a jumping off point to getting into the University of Michigan's accelerated 6-year pre-medical medical program, which allowed me to become a medical doctor at the age of 23, did 4 years of residency, and then started my private practice at the age of 27. So very, very young, if you know anything about medicine.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
it's just that this was my journey. And so now, as I'm looking back at my life and I'm trying to leave a legacy for my family, for my children, and perhaps future grandchildren, I want to talk about these things. I want to put it in writing. I wrote the book as a result of my TEDx talk on delayed gratification. I narrated the book myself on Audible. And again, part of the reason for that is I wanted to leave my voice as a legacy for my family and future family in the years ahead. And that's really was the start to all of this. It was a very simple concept that has just simply evolved, and the 2 TEDx talks have enjoyed a combined viewership so far of over 9 million views on YouTube. So I'm going to just continue the process. I'm still working full time, my 36th year of medical practice, and I enjoy that immensely. But I'm trying to do some new things, because as we all get older, we start thinking about our own mortality, right? And I don't know how many years I'll be on this earth. Hopefully, I'm hoping for another 30 years, but I don't know.
Right.
It could be tomorrow. So I'm just trying to leave that legacy piece behind.
Well, I appreciate that. And yeah, and I'm glad you explained about the accelerated program, because when I heard your TED Talk and you say it was like 23, and I'm like, whoa, how the heck did you do that? That seems awfully young to me. So yeah, you were definitely productively obsessed to be able to get through all of that. I want to get back to talking a little bit more about how we can help entrepreneurs, especially women entrepreneurs, or primarily my audience for the show. But I know we've had a gentleman who's been watching today as well on LinkedIn. So thank you, Sean. He's been commenting, which is great. What's the biggest conception or misconception, I should say, about resilience that might be holding entrepreneurs back?
Well, I think the misconception perhaps may be that resilience is something that cannot be developed, cannot be worked on. Maybe it's too oversimplified, but really, in my view, resilience is just looking at every setback, which I call a temporary step back, but I think most people call it a setback. Looking at every setback or challenge as an opportunity for growth and inner strength. It's basically rooted, in my view, it's rooted in the faith that every experience, Grace, no matter positive or negative, adds depth to our journey and wisdom to our life. So I think that resilience is critical, and we must be able to persevere and embrace those failures that hit us, right? Failures is part of growth. If we don't have failures, we don't grow. And so I think having a failure on a regular basis is a good thing. It forces us to learn and then to adjust whatever we're doing, to learn from it, and then start again and make it better the next time.
Yeah, absolutely. I do agree with that. And one of the things that was occurring to me as you're talking too is that it really can be challenging trying to grow a business and to start a business, and I wonder if you can, what would be maybe your recommendation to someone who is out there and they're trying to get going, they're trying to maybe cultivate, some of these, we talked a little bit about how to get started with like delayed gratification, but what other tips would you have for someone who wants to really start, becoming what they know inside that they can be a success? What would you recommend them to do?
Well, great question. I mean, many different answers. A couple things that come to mind is that we have to be willing to strategically take on risk. Now, when I talk about risk, I'm not referring to risk as a gambler would. If a gambler, if we go to Las Vegas and spin the roulette wheel. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about a calculated, thoughtful risk, because in order to achieve in life, and I've been throughout my life, I've been a calculated risk taker. Fortunately, the majority of the risks that I've taken have paid off, but I can definitively tell you that I've taken some risks that in hindsight, I think were really stupid, and I've really got burned badly, both professionally, financially, personally, et cetera. So I think just taking small incremental steps, having that insight that you will succeed and that there's a greater spirit out there, if you want to call it God or something in the universe, that really, if you meditate on it and you think about it and you actualize your dreams and aspirations, that it will occur. But it's not necessarily going to occur overnight. And so that's where that resilience and perseverance comes in. But take calculated risks, take small steps every day. You have to have a little bit of a thick skin. You have to, as I said earlier, you have to be able to embrace failure. You have to be able to brush off the negative self-talk inside your head and the negative talk around you, because sometimes we surround ourselves with people who we feel are in our corner, and maybe they think that they're in our corner. It could even be close friends and family members. And sometimes those close friends and family members can be a detriment, because they may hold you back and they may say negative things to you like, oh, you'll never do that. Oh, why are you wasting time on that? Why are you working so hard? You could be out enjoying yourself. You got to be able to get that negative talk and surround yourself with positive people. If you can find mentors who have actually achieved something similar to what you're wanting to achieve, that's phenomenal, right? That's the best. If someone who's actually walked those steps can give you terrific insight. But don't listen to the negativity from someone who hasn't walked those steps. That's just going to drag you down.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It's not going to do you any favors at all to pay attention to those people. Yeah. So
they may love you. I mean, they may love you immensely. It could be your parent. It could be your sibling. It could be your child. But you have to be able to still love them back and politely step to the side to stay focused on what it is that you want to achieve.
Right. Well, I'm going to kind of I don't know if I would say divert, but I would just love to ask you this question. I love asking our guests this. So it's totally not necessarily related to this at all, but what are you curious about right now?
Sometimes I'm curious about my role in this world. I mean, truly, other than the fact that obviously I am and have been a physician and surgeon. And so I've been blessed to have a role in helping patients achieve better eyesight, better aesthetics, et cetera. But really, there's even a deeper purpose. And honestly, I think I'm still trying to figure that out. I'm still trying to figure out my role. I mean, not my role, but my betterment of being a better husband, spouse, a better father to our children. Because unfortunately in life, and this is one of my perhaps I think biggest failures, is that it's been very difficult to balance all aspects of my life. And sometimes I get so obsessed with my day-to-day things that may be work-related, and now the speaking and writing and those sorts of things. And unfortunately, sometimes the family takes a back seat, which I'm not proud to say. So I'm always trying to figure out and be curious about how can I still maintain doing what I'm doing that I enjoy, but I also enjoy being a father and being a husband and trying to be a good human being overall. That's my biggest curiosity right now.
Well, it's good to know that you're still striving for some of that, because sometimes I think people think that they have to have everything figured out at a young age, and you're not going to.
No, no,
Don't worry about that.
yeah, well,
Figure out the next 5
yeah,
or 10 years, maybe. What do you
yeah.
think? Right?
Yes, absolutely. Just again, small incremental steps. Rejoice in the small achievements and the small milestones. I mean, really enjoy them. Put them inside your mind. Use them as a jumping off point to get to the next level. So, for
Mhm.
example, if you're climbing up a set of 10 stairs or 10 levels, and you go up the first set of stairs and you hit the second floor, rejoice. Rejoice, and then use that positive energy to fuel your passion and your inspiration to then go to the second level. And then you do the same thing, and one keeps building on the other. And next thing you know, you've really achieved tremendous things in life, tremendous things. But it takes time. It takes time. And that's the part that's difficult with today's society, with social media. I get it. I get it. Our kids, want instant everything. And it's hard to have them understand that one has to really work hard, be disciplined, persevere, and delay that gratification. And it's a difficult concept for today's youth. I totally understand. I get it. For me, once again, it was just part of my upbringing in life. I didn't choose it. It chose me. And here I am, and the better for it.
Well, we're glad that you are here and better for it. And just remember again that patience is a virtue. So we can strive for it. And I love that illustration of going up the flight of stairs, because again, you can pace yourself. You don't have to get up, you don't have to run all 10 flights right away. You can
That is
stop
correct.
at that landing, take a
Right.
break.
It's not a sprint, it's a marathon.
Exactly.
Right.
Yes, yes. And as someone who has done a marathon, I can attest to that.
Wow.
It's not an easy feat, and I won't do it again. I've done it twice, and I'm
That's,
done.
that's impressive. You put me to shame.
Well, it was it took me a long time. Okay, I was not in good shape either time, and it was like, I don't know, 7 hours or something, 6.5 hours, 7 hours. Not great. I don't recommend it unless you are donating to charity, which is what I was doing. I was raising money for charity, so for that, it was worthwhile. Let me ask you, because we're almost getting ready to close out, is there anything else that I should have asked you that I didn't, or any other last point that you'd like to make before we close out today?
No, I think you've hit on some wonderful topics. I go back to the 𝘰𝘄𝑵 triad that I refer to, the being disciplined, the resilience and perseverance, and the delayed gratification, having that obsessive drive, having purpose, knowing that there is a bigger, larger purpose to your life that is being overseen by someone, whether you believe in God or otherwise. There's someone out in the universe that's really directing and helping us achieve what we want, and just staying in a state of gratitude and humility. And I think if we can incorporate those attributes slowly, methodically, I think any of us can really achieve our goals and expectations and our aspirations. So one of my talking points is that, lack of privilege, I wasn't privileged. I was a refugee, but lack of privilege in this world, and certainly in the United States, my goodness, right? We have so much in this country to offer us, but lack of privilege is not an obstacle to success. So much of the time we hear in the media, this privilege concept, that's why such and such became successful is due to privilege. And sure, that can help certain aspects of success, but lack of privilege, whether it be ethnicity, race, financially, is not an obstacle. You can achieve. I sincerely 100% believe that every person on this earth can achieve if they have the proper attributes and attitudes in their heart and soul.
Yeah, it really just takes that deciding and deciding, is it worth it, having that strong enough why. I think
Right.
Simon Sinek wrote a book where he talks about that. But if your why is strong enough, you're going to make what you want happen. You're going to figure out a way. But I do think it also requires setting intentions and asking for guidance, going within and saying, show me how to do this, direct me on my path. And then I think doors do open for you. So
Right. But part of directing on the path is self-education, right? I mean, there's
right.
formal education that as kids, like our kids sometimes gripe about having to go to school, and they ask, well, why am I learning this? This is never going to serve me in life. Okay, I get some of those questions, but self-education, whether you end up going to college or not, you can always self-educate yourself by reading books, audiobooks, and self-education is crucial, especially in today's society, right? The world is changing at such a rapid pace. But self-education, which again is part of that obsessive drive, I go back to that obsession.
Right.
You have to have that obsession, and self-education is part of it so that we can really achieve things. We have to understand what's around us and how to do things. Like I'll have one of our kids say, "Oh, let's start a business. Can you float me, a few $1,000s and I'll start a business?" And I look and think, what do you know about starting a business?
Right.
You don't even barely know how to write a check or balance your checkbook, and you're talking about starting a business. So self-education, I think, is critical.
Absolutely. Yeah. And there's no shortage of ways that you can do that nowadays. I mean, because you can actually, I've listened to books on YouTube that people have uploaded. So you can certainly go to your local library, you can go to Amazon, but there's also ways that you can get that education. So I love that. I know that there's people who've been listening to this today and would like to know more about you. Maybe they want to be able to see your TED Talks and things. So how can folks get in touch with you?
Well, the easiest way is that they can go to my personal website, which is separate from my practice website, and that's dremiliojusto.com, dremiliojusto.com. And in that website, there's links to pretty much everything. There's links to both of my TEDx talks. There's links to Amazon for the book and for Audible if they want the audiobook. There are links to dozens of podcasts that I've been a guest on, such as yours. There's links to many articles. I think there's a wealth of information on there. And there's also a contact page where they can write a question and submit an email or request or a question. And it comes directly to me, and I'm extraordinarily efficient at getting back to people. So I typically get back the next day, the same day. And if not the same day, certainly within 24 hours.
Well, very good. And that's saying a lot for a gentleman such as yourself, who is so busy. And I know that you were able to squeeze this interview in today between procedures. So I appreciate that so much.
In between surgeries right now.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for joining us. This has been enlightening, and I really wish you continued success and look forward to your next TED Talk next year, hopefully.
Thank you very much, Grace. Thank you for the privilege and the honor, and kudos to you for all the wonderful work that you're doing, and many blessings to you.
Oh, thank you. And I also want to thank all of you for listening or watching wherever, if it's on YouTube or on social media. And I hope that you have gotten a lot of value out of it today. If this is your first time and you would like to, hear more about us, make sure that you do subscribe on your favorite podcast platform, or subscribe on YouTube at Gloria Grace Rand. I know it should be Live, Love, Engage, but what are you going to do? I started my personal YouTube before I started the podcast. So there you go. And I'm not changing it. So until next time, I encourage you, as always, to go out and live fully, love deeply, and engage authentically.